Hi, I'm John Potoshnik, an American artist residing in Wiley, Texas. Students have asked me when I'm going to produce a teaching video, particularly a painting demonstration. And so I'm trying to move in that direction slowly but surely, and so I'm experimenting here with my first teaching video. What I propose to do is create a painting using this color, this palette. And so for this opening video, I would like to explain this palette, why it was chosen, and explain how it was created. Very typically, many of my paintings are begun with a study, a color study about this size, where I'll work out different color schemes to see what will best work with the painting that I want to create. Almost all of my paintings are created with a three-color palette, a three primary color palette, and maybe an addition of one or two other colors, but primarily it is a three-color palette, a blue, a red, and a yellow. Not necessarily these primaries, but a three-color palette. This is an ultramarine blue here, and it's my go-to blue. It's the one that I would say is on my palette 80 to 90% of the time. If I do substitute a blue for this one, it's usually a cobalt blue, something like that. Once in a while cerulean, but most of the time it's an ultramarine blue. Alizarin crimson is often substituted with a cad red, sometimes with a Venetian red, sometimes with a vermilion. Sometimes I'll even stick in there, rather than a red at all, I'll put in a burnt sienna there. Yellow can be substituted with a number of things. Oftentimes my substitution would be a cadmium lemon. I've even used a yellow ochre in place of this. So, but the idea is a blue, a red, and a yellow. Some form of that is usually always the basis for my three-color palette. In this particular case, the painting I'm going to do that's hopefully going to follow this video is based on an analogous color scheme, and that's this row of color right here. I call it an extended analogous. Generally, when you look at color charts or wheels or so forth, they'll talk about an analogous being any three colors in a row. I have extended that to 5. The reason I like to do that is because, as you know from a typical color wheel, when colors are the farthest apart from one another, for instance, a yellow and a violet, or a red and a green, when you mix those two together, that's where you get a variety of neutrals, all kinds of grays and so forth. So the same follows here. By extending the analogous palette to 5 colors, I've now extended the length between this violet and over here to the orange. I've extended the length of that analogous string so that I have the option to get a little more neutrality. When I mix an orange with that violet, I can get something that's not quite as pure, but would tend more to the neutral color. So that was my reason for doing that. The selection of this particular analogous string is purely for the challenge of it. I don't know really how it's going to work. I haven't tried it, and I want to see what I can create with it. Just looking at it here, it looks like it's going to be very difficult to create a painting from this string of colors, but we're going to see. Another thing you'll notice is that this alizarin crimson here in the middle, every single color in this string has alizarin crimson in it. And it's the only color of all these that contains alizarin crimson. There is not any yellow in these mixtures over here, but there is alizarin in that. So alizarin is really going to be my dominant color, I think, for this little painting demonstration I plan to do. Now, there are some important points to know about color, is that every color has a bias to it. If I was to put cobalt blue next to this ultramarine blue, you would notice the ultramarine blue is much warmer than the cobalt would be, or even a more extreme example would be as if I put phthalo blue there, or a cerulean blue there, you would notice that that has much more green in it than the ultramarine. So what makes this warmer is it has red in it. In this case here of the alizarin crimson, it's pretty obvious to see that it is red, but it also has blue in it because it's a very cool red. And that would be even more noticeable if I put a cadmium red right here. You would notice that the cad red is much warmer, much warmer than the alizarin. The reason for that is the cad red has yellow in it. And in this case too, if I had lemon yellow over here, you would notice just how warm that is because lemon yellow has quite a bit of green in it. So a very important consideration is the temperature, the bias of the color of the primaries that we pick is very important up here before you even start your painting, because these biases will affect the outcome. It will affect what this palette actually looks like. For instance, if I wanted to do a really intense sunset, well, this would not be the right red to use for that because that red has blue in it. A more effective, more intense orange would be created by putting a cad red mixed with this cad yellow. Those oranges would be much more intense, and I'll explain why. Because very important to realize, students often will ask me, well, why am I painting so, not my paintings, but why are their paintings so muddy, they'll ask. And I'll say, well, whenever mud is created or dirty color is created in a painting, it's because the third primary has been integrated into that somehow. Look at this. Here's ultramarine blue, which has red in it. Here's a alizarin crimson, which has blue in it. I haven't mentioned yellow. There is no yellow in these mixtures. That's why these violets right here are very intense, and they're as intense as they could be. If I had switched this alizarin, excuse me, if I had switched this alizarin crimson out to a cad red, which has yellow in it, the third primary would be introduced into this mixture. These violets would be much more muted than they are. So we see that very clearly over here where we have alizarin crimson, which has blue in it. We have yellow, which has red in it. So now we've got the red, we've got the blue, we've got the yellow, and we have the red. So we have all three primaries involved, and that's why these oranges are grayed. They're just slightly grayed from what they would be if we had chosen a color, a red that did not have blue in it. So this selection is real important before you ever start this. But for our purposes and for the experiment painting I want to do, I've selected this palette. All these mixtures here are made from these three colors. So ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson mixed together have given me a violet and a red violet. You can see that's very hard to distinguish which is which. I mean, they're both basically look black. So that's why I added a row of, I added white to each of these colors above so that I could clearly see that there is a nice progression step by step as we go down, and there's a definite distinction between that color and that color. That's what I'm after. That's why it's important that this mixture be correct, and you can test it by adding white. So how do I get to that? How do I know that's even a violet? Well, it becomes personal taste. It becomes one's perception as to what they think violet looks like to them. My opinion is I want a violet that doesn't look blue and it doesn't look red. So to find that, when I'm trying to set up a palette like this, I mix these two together and then mix to the middle. So I mix for the violet first. Or mix up something with these two combined that will give me something that doesn't feel blue and does not feel red, and that is put down. Then I mix over to the red violet. So I take the violet, I mix it with the alizarin, that one and that one together, and in this case white was added to see, okay, do I have enough red in that to make that feel red violet? This feels red violet compared to that. If I had blue violet over here, I would have the ultramarine blue here, mix it with the violet, and I would determine what my blue violet would be, and it would set here. And so I have a nice steady step, a progressive step there as we go down. I hope I hope this has been a helpful video as an opener, and that we'll do more of these. I hope that this has been helpful to you, and I thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to see more of my work, I encourage you to go to my website, which is potoschnik.com, POTOTSCHNIK. When you get there, you'll see I also write a weekly blog, which is informative, it's educational, it's inspirational. I have over 40 artist interviews there, which I think you're going to find really a great learning experience. Very informative and inspirational. Also, I write a monthly newsletter, which you can sign up for there on my website. And then if you'd like to follow me on Facebook, do that, please. My Facebook page is John Potoschnik Fine Art. I hope you've enjoyed this video here, first color study video, and the next one hopefully we'll do a painting using this palette right here. By the way, this palette, this is all that will be on my palette, nothing else, just this row of colors plus white. So hope that helps. Thanks.